Happy Wednesday, everyone. Welcome to the FanDuel Punchout. I am Big Italy 42, joined by Spencer Limbach at Spencer_JL on Twitter. And it's currently raining in my house in Ohio. Pretty hard, actually, pounding up against the window. So needless to say, some weather concerns in Cincinnati today. But other than that, how you doing today, man?
Doing pretty good. It's raining at my house, too, in the Midwest in Nebraska. And it looks like that's through kind of the Midwestern region. So we have some rain chances in Kansas City and, like you said, Cincinnati, both sitting at about 50% this evening. So keep an eye on that development when you're filling out your lineups.
Yeah, I mean, we're good people to get a hold of tonight now since we're so close to these weather concern games. So find us later on. We'll let you know what the skies are looking like. But I'll tell you this, the skies in Ohio are very rarely sunny, so don't get too excited. All right, we're going to go ahead and talk about some FanDuel here. We're going to go position by position as we do. And we're going to start off first at starting pitcher. I'm going to give you my favorite starting pitcher, and then if you agree, let me know. If not, let me know your top guy. My favorite pitcher today, Carlos Carrasco. He's $8,700. Had some monster numbers last year, 26.5% strikeout rate. Ground ball rate just under 53%. Held both lefties and righties under a 252 WOBA. So he is my favorite option on the day. How about you?
I like him. I actually have him at number 2.
Okay.
My top guy per dollar, that is McCarthy for the Dodgers tonight. I like that price tag on him. He's a pretty decent home favorite. I think he's sitting at 145 favorite with a 6.5 over under. I just really like the spot for him. Love the price point. I'll probably target him in most of my cash games along with Carrasco.
Yeah, and I like that call too. And nice for him to get away from that Yankee Stadium. I mean, he's a nice ground ball pitcher, so that's a perfect environment for him with one of the better ground ball rates of anybody on the day. So definitely like that call. If you're looking elsewhere, there's a lot of good options, not a ton of great options. And, you obviously have your all-day slate. I'm not targeting the 2 early games. There's only supposed to be one anyway. The other one coming on because of a rain out last night. And a guy that I was a big fan of 2 years ago, and he struggled a little bit last year, and he is on the opposite side of your boy McCarthy there, Andrew Cashner. I like him as a tournament play. Obviously not a cash game staple or anything, but he's the guy that showed some nice upside a couple years back.
Yeah, and the thing with San Diego now is they have some bats. I mean, so it's realistic that they could get him a little better run support. Granted, I still like McCarthy tonight in that spot, but yeah, at the same time, he's really not a bad play. And trying to see where his price point is.
He's at 8.2.
8.2. I mean, yeah, that's an okay range. I may rather go in that same range with Scott Kazmir. A nice matchup against Texas, who really isn't that good against lefties. They really don't have any right-handed bats to oppose him, except for Adrian Beltre. So if he works around Beltre, I think Kazmir could be in for a good night. And, I mean, he's a heavy favorite, really in line for the win. So that's another guy I could consider for cash games.
Yeah, I like that as well. And really a lot of these other guys in play for tournaments, obviously you're not going to even take any chances on these low, cheap guys because, to be completely honest, most of the cheap guys are pretty terrible. You've got Eddie Butler, who didn't pitch many innings last year, but was awful. Jeremy Hellickson. We'll get to him here in a few minutes, how terrible he was against righties last year. So that's going to be a fun one. We got a monster total there once again in Arizona.
Oh, yeah.
All right, moving on here to catcher. And I hate to be chalk about it, but the top option is still going to be Buster Posey for me. Had a nice game yesterday. Matchup with Jeremy Hellickson, who allowed a 423 WOBA to right-handed batters last year, which, I mean, granted it was under 30 innings. He didn't play a ton, but he's a guy who really struggled, and I don't see much of an improvement, especially in that hitter's ballpark today against the Giants.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I feel the same way. Obviously, Posey's the top option. And the thing about today is that pitching isn't that expensive. I mean, it's not like opening day where you're going to go 10.4K for Kluber or 11K for Kershaw. I mean, you're looking at Carrasco, 8.7, McCarthy, 7.6, and guys in between that range. So I think rostering Buster Posey is a reality here. If you want to kind of spin off of that, Jonathan Lucroy again against Butler. Milwaukee, the first two games of this series, they haven't really lived up to the hype, but I mean, that's where you have to be stubborn, and I think it might pay off with sticking with the Brewers tonight. Otherwise, spinning down from there, home run upside per usual in Yankee Stadium. Brian McCann, more of a tournament play than anything because he's either gonna hit a home run in that short porch in right field, or he's gonna ground out into the shift every single time. So yeah, Brian McCann, keep him on your tournament radar. But for cash games in the same range, I might go with Yan Gomes. A nice matchup, even though it's righty on righty. Gomes is a lot better against lefties. Against Feldman, Cleveland has a reasonably high total tonight. He's batting, I think, 4th or 5th in that lineup. I'm not sure what he's going to do against a righty here, but I mean, he's going to be in the thick of things, and he's a reasonable contact hitter that I would target in cash games.
Yeah, I like that too. And Gomes, a guy with a ton of power too. So, and we know that Feldman, pretty much a contact pitcher. He's not a strikeout guy by any means. A 14% strikeout rate. I mean, he waits for you to hit the ball. It's just a matter of how hard you're going to hit it. So, I like that call there definitely. Moving on here to first base, and there's a couple options here. One of my favorites here is, assuming the rain is fine, it's going to be Joey Votto. And maybe I'm being a homer here, but got himself off to a decent start this season in the first game. Patient to play, one of the better hitters in the game. And, as we know, Garrett Cole, pretty bad against lefties. I mean, that's his kryptonite. Gave up 326 WOBA to these guys last year. So I like Joey Votto at his price tag tonight at only 3,600. I mean, he's priced in the mid-range there, and when he's healthy, one of the better hitters in the game. Yeah,
that's not a bad call. I actually overlooked him. When you said his name, I was kind of going up and down the list here, looking at him in the 4K range, and he wasn't there. So, I mean, yeah, that's a great price point. For my top option, it's obviously Paul Goldschmidt.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I mean, he's really expensive. So if you want to pivot off of that, Adam Lind, once again, sticking with the Brewers theme. He's in a good spot. His price is jacked up a little bit, but I think he's more accurately priced now. He probably should have been about 3.3K to begin with. So I really don't mind him as a cash game staple there.
No, not at all, especially against Eddie Butler, who we mentioned. Only pitched 16 innings in the majors last year, but really struggled against lefties and righties. I mean, so it's still a fine spot for Milwaukee. I'm not scared of going back to it. Obviously, there's some volatility there, but ton of upside with these Milwaukee bats for sure.
Yeah, and he's been hitting the ball, and but I mean, the Brewers just haven't been getting on base for him to get those RBIs. So, I mean, if the guys like Gomez and Lucroy get on base, I mean, he's got some great RBI opportunities.
Yeah, one more guy I would like to target, depending on whether or not he plays. He got hit in the neck with a pickoff attempt in the last game. It's Justin Morneau. Wiley Peralta, really, really awful against lefties. Gave up a 361 WOBA to lefties last season. So I'm loving these Colorado left-handed bats. Obviously, Morneau a part of that. Maybe he sits today. That remains to be seen. But I like him a lot in tournaments at 3,800.
Yeah, I like that call too. Is it Wiley or is it Willie?
I don't know. I always called him Wiley E. Peralta just because the whole Wiley Coyote thing. I always like that. I have no idea.
I like that too.
Yeah.
I always called him Willie, but I like Wiley.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know which one it actually is. I just have always gone with that.
Plus, he's kind of wild sometimes, so it kind of falls in the theme.
Yeah, exactly. And, I mean, I would just love targeting lefty bats against him, especially a team with power like this. So, yeah, Wiley, Willie, either way, play left-handed bats against Peralta, we should say. All right, moving on to second base. We were talking a little bit about this guy before the show. Dustin Pedroia, obviously ex-MVP, guy who struggled last year, got himself off to a nice start this year with that 3-for-5 game with 2 homers in the first game. Obviously, you're not anticipating anything near that today, but got a nice matchup with Aaron Harang here, who pretty awful against lefties and righties at this point in his career. He's pretty much just a filler for bad teams like the Phillies. So I don't mind targeting him at all. And Pedroia's price not bad at 3,700. I mean, I'm not going to go all in on him, but I think around this price tag, he's got some solid upside.
Yeah, I really don't mind that either. The problem I'm running into is that there's some opportunity cost at second base. I think there's some good value down there. So, I mean, you could look towards Jason Kipnis at the same price as we said against Feldman, who likes to pitch to contact. I think that's a decent position for him. But one of my favorite per dollar guys of the night is Ben Zobrist. Once again, Texas is rolling out a lefty tonight, Detweiler, and Zobrist, as we know, switch hitter. I think that A's lineup could do some damage tonight, and I'll be targeting them as kind of a mini stack.
Yeah, I agree there. And I mean, Zobrist has with the ideal spot. I mean, he's been batting third in the order. I mean, he went 0 for 4 last night, but not too concerning. At 3,300, he makes for a fine price against a guy who's pretty much just a career relief pitcher anyway. You don't expect he's going to go deep anyway, and not a great bullpen there in Texas either. So.
Otherwise, if you want to go down and punt the position, you have Mr. Panic, Joe Panic, again in a good spot. He's been on pretty good punt play as of late, the first 2 games. Good lineup positioning. The same can be said for Peterson of Atlanta. They're both hitting at in the 2-hole, I believe. So some good lineup positioning if you want to punt the position there and spend up elsewhere.
Yeah, and I don't mind that at all, especially with Panic, and they got a great matchup. He's batting right ahead of Posey and some other big bats, so definitely like that call there. Next up, we have third base, and you're going to get sick of hearing this every time Kyle Seager faces a righty at home, but Kyle Seager is facing a righty at home, and he's $3,600. So I love Kyle Seager once again. I don't care that he's let me and others down for the first 2 games. 0 for 7 so far this season. I'm calling Kyle Seager dong today. I'm going out on the wall. Home run for Kyle Seager.
Dude, I like it. I mean, and here's the best part about that is, I mean, not many people are going to have him because, I mean, like you said, 0 for 7 to start the season. A lot of people just click on the game logs and they see that and they take comfort in it. But, I mean, you just have to keep an open mind. Look at the matchup. Look at his potential. And, yeah, like you said, this lines up really well for him. He was a monster at home last season. Schumacher's an okay pitcher. But like you said, Seager just feasts at home. So, yeah, I'm keeping him on my tournament radar. I'm definitely going to blend him into a lot of teams.
Yeah, and Shoemaker's biggest weakness there, struggles a little bit with fly balls. He's got 39% fly ball rate, so definitely like that in more of a pitcher's park, of course. But some other options here. Mike Moustakas had a nice spring, got off to a nice start. He's sitting at $2,900. Not an ideal matchup, but it's $2,900, so I don't mind him as a punt.
No, I'm not doing this lefty on lefty, man. I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
Here's what I have. Said? I have Pablo Sandoval against Harang. We mentioned Harang with that tremendous fly ball rate. Philly is a pretty decent hitter's park. And Sandoval, even though he's a switch hitter, he's a lot better lining up from the left side of the plate. So, I mean, it's not much of a surprise that he went 0 for 5 the other day with most of those at-bats against a great lefty in, what's his face? Who was pitching for?
Hamels.
Hamels, yeah, that's right. Thanks for the save there. But, yeah, Pablo Sandoval is one of my favorite third base options in that $3K price tag. I really like it. Other than that, like we said, I really like Oakland bats tonight. And Brett Lowry, he has the platoon advantage against the lefty this evening. So I think he's in a good spot, even though the first 2 games haven't been that great. I've been on him the first 2 games, and he hasn't really paid it off. I think tonight's the night.
Yeah, I like that. And as far as Sandoval goes, I had missed that price tag. I definitely like him a lot there at $3K. Next up, shortstop. Not a lot of options I'm in love with here, so maybe you've got some guys you want to throw out there. We don't need to tell you about Troy Tulowitzki. Fine matchup. Peralta better against righties and lefties, but, I mean, when he's playing, doesn't matter if he's at home, he's going to be your top option. He's $4,600 today, so if you want some upside, go ahead. And I don't think I'll be playing him in any cash games because he's so pricey. Like some other guys better, but obviously in play. You've got Jimmy Rollins at $3,900, got himself off to a decent start this year. I don't think he's a bad play against Andrew Kashner. And who else are you looking at here at shortstop?
Before I get into shortstop, I want to say Jeremy Lamb, third base, 2.3K. Definitely a good play. I think we might be getting some tweets if we didn't mention him because
good call.
If you're punting the position, he's the guy. I mean, the first 2 games, he's been amazing. Obviously, that may not carry over, but he's got a decent matchup once again in a high total.
Yeah.
Worth mentioning.
And all the salary.
At shortstop, I think it's too low or punt pretty much. I mean, that's what I'm looking at. And too low, like you said, I don't know if I really want to reach up that high. But at the same time, he has a decent matchup, and I think he fits more comfortably than most nights. because the higher pitching options are 8K range. So I think you can work him into cash games and be all right with it. Otherwise, if you aren't going with him, I think you're going to look down and try and punt the position. Maybe you can go Jose Reyes. Personally, I'm not probably going to do that. But going down the list here, Marcus Semien, another Oakland righty with the platoon advantage. He doesn't have tremendous power upside, but I think he's in a decent spot tonight. Might be moving up in the order also with the platoon advantage. We know the Oakland really likes to adjust their lineup accordingly.
Yeah.
But who else do you have at shortstop?
And there's really nobody else that I'm feeling comfortable with here down cheap. I was searching and searching, and there's, I mean, I may just go ahead and just slot in Tulo because he gives you the high floor. And, I mean, like you said, it's not difficult. I mean, we've got basically the 2 and 3 options, mostly 3 options for most teams taking the mound today. So, like you said, easy to fit pretty much anyone you want.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I mean, maybe some value will open up. Maybe we'll see some guys slotting up maybe in the 2-hole in some lineups, and we'll get some value there. But, as is, not a lot of guys I like that are cheap. All right, next up, Outfield. And I'm going to tell you a guy that I really like here today, and this is going to come as no surprise. Corey Dickerson, $4,200, was actually the best against right-handed pitching last year in the entire league, and now facing Willie, whatever you want to call him, Mr. I struggle against left-handed batters, and I love Corey Dickerson. I think he will be in most of my lineups today.
Yeah, I'm in total agreement there. I have him basically at the top of the list here, along with Carlos Gomez, and with the platoon advantage for Dickerson and the way the Rockies have been swinging the bats. I mean, he has more RBI potential too. So, yeah, Dickerson, definitely a guy I'm targeting in all formats.
Yeah, absolutely, and much cheaper on FanDuel than DraftKings right now too. So I'm taking advantage while I can with that price tag till it gets up higher. So elsewhere in the outfield, assuming rain permitting, I already mentioned Garrett Cole struggling against lefties. Jay Bruce did homer in the first game, and he's nice and cheap here today once again. So I don't mind him at $3,700. He's got some nice upside. Tournament only, of course, because he's just as likely to homer as he is to strike out 4 times. But if you're looking at some upside in some tournament, I think there's much worse spots that you can go to.
Yep. And then I'm looking kind of from there. I don't really like anyone else in the 4K range other than Dickerson and Gomez. I'm probably going to go down more towards the 3K range. One guy in between I'm looking at is Mark Trumbo, that high total in Arizona. Might want to get exposure to that. Trumbo, as we know, home run upside. But otherwise, in the 3K range, Angel Pagan. It's been off to a hot start. That makes me apprehensive a little bit for tournaments because I know he's going to have a high ownership percentage based on those first 2 games. But, I mean, the matchup is great. Really like that matchup, and the price point, you can't really beat that. Otherwise, looking down the list, you can go Chris Davis for tournaments again. Maybe try to catch that home run upside. But I really wouldn't have too much exposure because he is boom or bust. Anyone else you're looking at in the punt range?
I don't mind Charlie Blackmon, another guy lefty against in a good matchup, and he's just 1 for 9 so far this season. So should go under the radar. Should be batting leadoff once again. 3,300. I think as far as matchups go around that price, he's got the best one, honestly.
Right. And then if you're looking at like true punts, 2.5K range, 2.6K range, Craig Gentry. Again, sticking with the Oakland theme, he'll be likely batting leadoff again with the platoon advantage for Oakland. Oakland's not a huge power team, but they're just a pesky team that gets hits, scores runs. So, I mean, they could pile it up that way. Para will likely fill in for Braun once again, and he has the platoon advantage over Butler in that game. He's only 2.5K, so I really don't mind him as a filler in that spot. Other than that, maybe Eric Young. Don't love the matchup, but he's a guy, if he gets on base, he's going to swipe a bag and he's going to rack up some fantasy points that way. As we saw last night, he only went 1 for 5, but he drew a walk, he scored a run, he got an RBI, he stole a base, 5 fantasy points. I mean, that's what this guy does, and he bats leadoff for Atlanta. So I really don't mind him if you're sitting there and you really need a filler in that range, like to round out a stack, a cheap guy. I think Eric Young is your guy.
Yeah, I agree with you there. And one other guy I'm going to throw out there, Travis Snyder, $2,800. Yeah. Obviously not going to maintain the ridiculous pace he's on. 3 for 4 first game. Last night, 1 for 1 with 3 walks. But, I mean, batting in the heart of that order with some nice bats around him, sitting at $2,800, and not a bad matchup against the guy who struggles to keep the ball on the ground either.
1 for 1 with 3 walks, an RBI, and a run. That's a sweet line right there.
Yeah, I mean, Travis Snyder.
That's just as good as, like, the home run and then, you know, ground out the rest of the time.
Yeah, pretty much. So, I mean, he's obviously you don't expect him to get on base 80% of the time in the near future, but, I mean, at that price tag in that order, that matchup, I do like him quite a bit, too.
Yep.
All right, well, that's going to wrap things up for us here today. Check out all the great content we have at dailyfantasycafe.com, and we will see you guys again tomorrow.